Two-Face, issue 4, Christian Ward writing with Fabio Veras on the art. The trial of Harvey Dent inside Harvey Dent's mind. You know the tagline for Inception is your mind is the scene of the crime. Well, this is your mind is the scene of the court trial.
Court TV through Harvey Dent's eyes.
Yeah. So basically, the Two-Face persona is putting Harvey Dent on trial for all of his misery. And it's basically like a backstory of how Harvey created this identity to deal with his pain when he was a kid with his abusive father and all that stuff. And it goes through some key events and how, like, okay, whenever he was hurt, he would ask the other version of him to, like, take over and deal with the pain. And Two-Face is basically arguing that he's been nothing but this, like, abused punching bag to deal with the and after he moved away from his dad and went to live with his mom, all of a sudden that wasn't needed anymore, so I was put in a box and never let out until one day some acid hit the face and all of a sudden I was unleashed once again to deal with that pain, and Two-Face as we know him was born. This was interesting. I thought this was like a nice kind of look at Harvey's backstory, because we always talk about how Harvey clearly had mental issues before he became Two-Face, and the incident just sort of brought it out and obviously gave it a visual, like, motif that kind of went with it. But it's more of just of a traditional split personality disorder. So actually hearing how some of this developed in his childhood, I did think was quite interesting.
I mean, just the fact that the other Harvey, right, was built to be like this whipping boy, right? And then finally he gets a chance to let it out, right? Which kind of, to me, defeated the Harvey, because everything that the Two-Face persona is saying, right, is like in court. He's basically saying, like, I've been a victim of the circumstance, right? I've never been in control. He's took that all away. But it almost seems like...
Joe's so wild about this is... just how similar it thematically is hitting on a lot of what Severance is, which is the idea of, like, someone split in two and only one has to go to work, and the one that goes to work only ever experiences work, so they're basically just a slave to deal with that part of the life. And they start to feel like, oh hey, why don't I get to experience the happy home life? Why don't I get to experience these other things?
Back with Harvey, the whole case that the bad Harvey's bringing is like, he has been a victim of circumstances. He's never been in control. So anything that Harvey's done as Two-Face is stuff that Harvey wants to do anyways.
Yeah, and he blames the coin. He's like, hey, the coin's making the choices, not me.
And I'm thinking this, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Is Harvey the shadow, or is this Scarvy, which is what he called him, his shadow?
Scarlet,
yeah, just because it goes.
I mean,
Harvey and Scarvy.
It worked in the scene, the context, because he was a kid when he named him that.
I think it was fine as a pun in the moment, like, oh, maybe we should call you Scarvy, But like to keep it going as a continuous thing, that it kept coming back with,
But again, is this just Harvey coming to terms with himself and trying to, right? Because
of course it is. I mean, Matt, this is exactly just the idea of him basically struggling with his own like responsibility for everything he's done, and like that's what this is. That's all what this is.
No. But what I was getting to here is, like, ultimately, the acid, right, was just the gateway for Harvey to do what Harvey wants to do, right? And that was to go against everything else, right? Being the lawyer and his released inhibitions.
I mean, it's not like I think he was planning it, and the acid was a convenient excuse when it popped along. I think it was very traumatic and did unleash this other side of him that he's maybe buried down for a bit. But I think him looking back on it, it's like, oh, did part of me want to do all these bad things, and did I give in to all these temptations because I had this convenient excuse? It's kind of like the same way when Batman looks back and thinks about, oh, did I make things worse? Did I like use this as an excuse to do these crazy things because I've got other like motives or whatever? It's kind of very similar in that sense to looking back at and sort of judging yourself in hindsight and saying, what exactly, why did I do these things? So I think it's interesting. I think it's a really focused issue that really sticks to this one idea, and it does this thing in the middle where when he locks the scarred version away, he's just in like a full black page, and it's just the little scarred Harvey boy sitting there.
I think the art is the strongest thing in this book, and it has been.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first issue was actually like in terms of writing was probably my favorite. I think it's been very up and down after that, but I think the art has remained pretty fantastic throughout all 4 issues.
I think this is probably my second favorite issue in terms of writing, just because I think the focus and it being so direct, I think helps it quite a bit.
I agree. With a couple of key exceptions that I'm still not keen on, like the ending.
Which is like the woman in the mask being his mother,
warden,
and he's and his head.
Which I understand though, because if he's looking at his mom and his dad as two sides of himself, and that the mom was the kind of the good side, right?
Yeah,
and
the
dad was
scarred kid never got to spend time with her because he was only allowed to be out with the dad, kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think playing it as a big reveal here, like I don't know, it just doesn't work as well for me.
I mean, that's fair.
I like it because I also like the idea that Harvey thinks of his mom as this conscience. And this is the kind of conscience at play here, trying to come to terms with the bad Harvey. And she's the one that's been keeping an eye because we've seen this big figure floating around the brain prison.
With a big eye.
With a mind prison. Yeah. So, and if Justice is blind, this eye is open, right? So it's also thematically in with that.
I like the thematic idea that the idea in his head of his mother feels sympathy for this version of her son that she never really spent time with, even though it's not really her. But that's why she's given him the key to let him out at the end, is because, hey, you're just as like valid to be out in the world as he is. So here you go. I like the idea behind that. I mean, the actual taking the mask off and being like, hey, it's mummy. That was whatever. I didn't really feel that much for it.
No.
So, I think it's pretty good. I think the art's really nice. I like the focus, and I do kind of like delving into a little bit of Harvey's past. Like this, it's interesting here the Two-Face side of his persona argue this that he's the victim because he's been treated as this punching bag just to sort of like shield him from the actual pain. I thought it was a really interesting idea and made me sympathize with that side of Two-Face in a way that I don't think you typically do.
And I never really needed an origin for the coin, but I like what it represents, right? That it was only bad things that came from this coin. Therefore, when he adopted it as Two-Face, only bad things would come from it. So I do like it in that sense.
If there's one thing I'm a little bit more mixed on, is I don't know if I needed to have an origin of the coin in the flashbacks. I think that was the part that felt a little bit hokey to me. It was like, hey, toss a coin, son. It says you're taking too long to pick your ice cream.
I do think it's, like I say, it's the second strongest issue. But I almost didn't read this because I really didn't like the last issue. I thought it'd been getting like weaker each issue. I thought last issue was kind of a mess for me. But
that was the ventriloquist one?
Yeah. So I thought I'll read this one. I'll give it a try. And I thought it was significantly better. I think focusing in, making it back about Harvey helped. But I think it might have gone a little bit too far for me as well in the opposite direction. I don't know if I needed quite so much childhood. I don't know if I need like all the child trauma and the coin. Like all it was just. It feels a little bit for me like, this is our Harvey's thing. Harvey, we've got to explore every aspect of Harvey's life in this 6-issue mini that it is now, and I don't know. It just felt like it doesn't have. When we got the first issue, I thought it had like a clear story that the book was telling, and now I don't feel like it does. It's just got a couple of ideas that it wants to play with, and then we'll just explore some Harvey.
Yeah, but I definitely feel like he's gonna round up so how that issue ended, right, was he has the other group, right, that's running around.
Yeah.
Like his gang, right? And so I definitely think this is gonna be him rounding that up as Two-Face. Right, be like, you don't get to pretend to be me, Harvey. I'm me. And I feel like that's the direction.
I just felt like I said, when I came out of that first issue, I thought, this is got a strong, focused arc of what this is going to be. And he just hasn't had that direction, hasn't had that impetus at all. Like, I don't know. The pacing of this book just feels so off to me. And that hurts this issue a little bit, even though it's like a much better issue on its own. Like, it's a little bit weird for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to rating then. Matt, what are you giving Two-Face?
I'm going to give this a 7.5.
Connor?
I think I'm going to it was in isolation, it'd be 7. With the pacing issue as a series as a whole, probably colors it a little bit down to like a 6.5.
It's at least a 7.5 for me. I might even dip it almost to the 8. I think I'll stay at 7.5 and be conservative, but it's like I think I like the gist of what this issue is doing. Admittedly, it does make the outside the head plot feel a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I'm excited about going back to that as much, you know. But
I will miss his the hard of hearing girl. I like that character addition.
Yeah, so, no, I liked her introduction
see her again
in issue 1. Yeah. But I thought she'd be a bigger part of the book though, and it feels like last issue she, you know, I mean she was around, but it didn't feel like, I don't know.